Let's do it. Let's do it. I believe in you, John.
Yeah, this is where I flubbed the first 3 attempts at it.
It's alright.
Hey, magic of editing.
Yeah. Clean it up in post.
Welcome to Low Volume, smallformedictor.net's podcast. If you're wondering why I'm sounding a little different, it's because I'm not Joshua. I'm John Morrison, and I'm your host for this time. Joshua is currently away, helping out in another country. Today we have James Schell.
Hello.
Hi. Also joining us is Jay.
I'm back.
Because that wasn't creepy at all.
Always creepy all the time.
As always, we're going to start with the news. First up, we're looking at the Intel Skull Canyon NUC, which is quite a powerful little beastie, coming in at, just under half a litre for the one without the 2.5-inch drive, and just over half a litre for the one with the 2.5-inch drive. Now, Jay, I think you posted this in the notes. Would you like to talk more about it?
Sure. This, I thought was very interesting. I am a bit of a sucker for these NUC-style systems. When they first were launched, I thought it was the coolest thing ever. The only problem, obviously, was that they had sort of gimped CPUs. I mean, they just weren't that powerful. You get U-series chips or just low-power chips in general. This one separates itself, by having a flat, almost pocketable design, and having an i7 6770 HQ, which is a 2.6 gigahertz chip that turbos up to 3.5 gigahertz. So when you factor that in, that's a full hyper-threading chip. You get all 8 threads, just like you would in a normal desktop chip. Obviously, the clock is a little slower than you were going to get from a desktop part, but you can do pretty much everything that you would normally do. So this little guy really packs a punch, 45-watt TDP, and the whole system can be built to a pretty powerful system. So you can do 32 gigs of RAM, dual M.2 SSDs that both support NVMe. It's just a little beast. And also it takes the external graphics dock. You can use, obviously, the Razer Core is the most popular one out now, but in the future you'll be able to get whatever graphics dock that supports USB 3 Thunderbolt. So that, it's just a really interesting and powerful system with a lot of connectivity and ports. I don't know what you guys think about it, but I definitely would be interested in at least checking one out.
Yeah, for those of us who go to LANs and don't play the really pretty games, when you're playing stuff like Team Fortress 2, Counter-Strike, or the other ones like that.
MOBAs too.
Yeah, that's pretty much the perfect LAN rig right there.
Mm-hmm.
And it's interesting that Intel's used the Skull Canyon branding on this one, because Skull Canyon's always been their high-end ATX or EATX boards with hundreds of slots and that kind of thing. So it's like the opposite end of the spectrum all of a sudden. So they might be seeing more of a small form factor focus, like performance small form factor focus from Intel, especially if they're using one of their glory brands on this.
Also, the top panel's removable, and you're going to be able to do like 3D printed custom top pieces.
Ooh, that'd be nice.
Really cool. Yeah, just like so, they're giving you all sorts of customization. It's just a really cool little system, and it's $650, which isn't cheap, but isn't super expensive for what you're getting. So, I think it's priced around where I would expect it to be, and it also has the HD5, the 580 graphics, integrated graphics. So you should be able to run a lot of stuff, a lot of, like you said, low-res games. I bet you could run Team Fortress and League of Legends or at a decent rate with the 580 from what I've seen so far. So, a really cool little system.
Do you know if it comes with a VESA mount? Because that'll be the perfect thing to turn up to a LAN with just your monitor.
That's a great question. I have not seen a VESA mount yet, but
I can't see any information on it. But
yeah, I'm sure you could get a bracket or something. It's so small.
That'd be kind of neat if you did a VESA mount GPU dock.
That would be awesome.
Yeah.
That would be very cool. I was also thinking you could do like dual USB 3 monitors, like those Seuss
Yeah.
ones or something, and just bring your whole rig with you like that. One plug, wireless peripherals, and you're good to go anywhere really. With one plug, that would be kind of cool too.
Or maybe have like a Pico projector stuck to the top of it.
Oh, now you're cooking. Now you're talking. I love all this. But yeah, I think I want to check one of these out really badly.
Can you run the M.2 drives in RAID 0? Because it says it has two of them.
Yeah, from what I've read, you can run them in RAID or.
That's insane.
Yeah. So, I mean, you can really do anything with this system. It's pretty. Oh, also the micro SD slot supports up to 500 gigs, so you can really pack in some serious storage on here.
Oh, wow.
Speaking of external GPU docks, the Razer Core, they've released the pricing on it, and it's not particularly cheap. I think Jay, you posted up on this one as well. What's your thoughts?
Yeah, this is a much older story, and we had an extensive convo in the thread about this. It's really what it came down to. I think was the consensus was that they're charging the $499 for the Razer Core now because they're pretty much first to market, and people are going to be rushing out to get it to pair it with the Blade, Stealth, et cetera, et cetera. It's a beautiful dock. It's a little bulky. It does have a decent amount of power, more power than you would really ever need for any single GPU that will fit in here. It doesn't have support for liquid-cooled graphics cards, which is kind of a bummer for something that costs $500. You can also get it for $399 if you pre-order it with the Blade Stealth notebook. So, I mean, I think it's a little bit much. Obviously, I would personally just wait if you need it right now. I don't know what you guys think, but it's a little pricey for me, personally.
I'm just waiting for someone to come up with an open source version of the external GPU docks, something that's just a bare PCB you can make your own enclosure for.
Right.
Until then,
I mean,
it's not my thing.
That would be... Apparently, there's a whole list of criteria set up to have the device be an official certified USB 3 dock. So I was watching an interview with the guy from Razer, and he was talking about how they developed it with Intel. So it's kind of cool. We'll see. I'm sure you'll see the Roswell and budget PC guys come out with their docks in the future. But for now, kind of stuck.
Yeah. The early adopter fee.
Yeah, but it is beautiful. I mean, it's
pretty
nice. Yeah.
What if you could mod that to take an ITX board? Just a thin ITX behind the graphics card.
You'd have to. The power supply is back there on the back side, because like at first when I saw this, I thought the GPU would be like on the bottom, like horizontally. But no, the power supply, it's a Flex ATX, like some kind of custom Flex ATX unit, and it's actually on the back side, like behind the GPU. So, I mean, I guess in theory, I think you could fit a motherboard in here, but you'd have to figure out some kind of power solution. So, like a HD Plex with an external brick or something like that.
Or just HD Plex and pull it off, tap off the 12 volt for the graphics card.
Yeah. I wonder if you guys were going to design an external dock for your specifications, which way would you do it? I mean, I always, because if I was thinking of an external dock that I would design for myself, this would not be how I would do it. I would probably do it where the graphics card was laying flat, facing up, just so it wasn't so tall, and definitely run some sort of passive PSU in there instead of having any kind of fan to create more noise, because it's even more noise when it's outside of a case, kind of. So you'll still have your computer with fans or pumps, whatever, and then you'll have a separate dock next to it with more fans. It could get a little loud, but I don't think this would be the way I would design it personally.
I'll just do it with a VESA mount so you don't see it.
That would be a good option.
And that way you don't have to
Yeah.
worry about moving cables around. All you just got to do is plug it into your laptop or whatever. It's all ready to go on your desktop monitors, which you're going to have the graphics plugged into anyway.
Yeah. Or like an under the desk, kind of adapter would be kind of cool, where you just kind of hook it in and then forget about it. That'd be kind of cool.
Personally, personally, I hate external bricks, so I would fit like a SFX-L power supply in there. But I mean, the problem is, like, once you do that, you're basically, like, one of the most compact way to do that would be like the Dan A4 case. So I mean, at that point, it's just like, you might as well just put a motherboard in there and be done with it. Like, that's kind of the problem, is that, like, either you do an external brick, or you do, like, if you want it to be at least reasonably small, you're stuck with like a Flex ATX power supply, which,
Right.
I mean, they have a custom unit, so it's hard to say, like, if it's loud. I mean, at low loads, I mean, some of the newer Flex ATX power supplies at low loads are actually, like, they run fanless, so I mean, they're quiet. But I mean, at the end of the day, I mean, it's a 40 millimeter fan, so, and it has to, like, push air through the entire length of the power supply past. I mean, those things are, like, crammed full of parts. So I mean, just no matter what, at full load, it's not going to be quiet as far as the power supply goes. So
Right. Well, here's a thought.
Yeah.
What if they came out with, obviously this will probably never happen, but what if they came out with like a 8-pin pass through, so you could run your 8-pin and your USB-C cable to the core or dock, and then you don't have to have any kind of internal power. I wonder if they could do
so
something
run it
like
off the. So you're saying, like, pull the power from your computer, right?
that. Right, yeah. So
okay.
it would be like a motherboard connect somewhere. I don't know if that's possible. But
The main thing is, like, because it's 12 volt, it's a lower voltage, so you'll be limited in how far of a cable you can run before the voltage drop becomes a problem. That's why most laptop adapters are 19 volt, is so they can have longer cords.
Right.
I think the major issue here is these are basically designed for laptop use. And trying to pull
that too.
275 watts out of a laptop battery, you're going to burn something.
Yeah.
Like, on the USB-C with the high watt spec, is that one way, or could you do like could you, I'm wondering if you had like a splitter or something, if you could both power the dock and power the laptop at the same time off of, like, the USB-C.
That's an interesting question. Or if you had two USB-C connectors, what would that?
Yeah.
I don't know the answer to that. I'll have to look into that. But I mean, like, we'll see what happens in the future, I guess. Very cool, very exciting stuff, I think.
And while we're talking about power supplies, there something completely unexpected from Lian Li was, I'm not sure if it's been launched yet, but we found out about it today. A couple of SFX power supplies from them, a 550 and a 750 watt unit. They're both in the SFX-L form factor, so bigger fan, slightly larger, but obviously slightly quieter. James, you found this. What are your thoughts?
Okay, so first off, big thank you to Very Rarium in the forum. He had PM'd me about these and gave me the heads up. So huge thanks to him. So Lian Li just kind of just out of the blue just launched these power supplies. So yeah, they're both SFX-L. The 550 watt unit is a gold rated unit, and the 750 watt unit is a platinum rated unit, which for those who kind of follow the Silverstone offerings, Silverstone has a 700 watt platinum unit in development. So at first I thought these must be based off the same platform, but after doing some digging, so I think it's Quan456 on the Johnny Guru forums noticed that the UL number, which is for people who aren't familiar with UL, they do a lot of like safety testing and stuff, safety certifications, and the UL number pulled up a database listing for Enhance, which Enhance has been known for making various SFX units. Like, they've made the Silverstone SX600G, which is a 600 watt SFX, but I don't think anybody had any indication that they had an SFX-L platform in development. So that was just totally unexpected, especially just from Lian Li, because they've not really have made a name for themselves in the power supply department. But anyway, yeah, interesting looking units. I don't know, it's very distinctive, but I'm not a real big fan of the grill design on these things. It's very squarish. I don't know. Doesn't seem like it'd be very I don't know. It just seems not really restrictive, but I think it's probably going to be a little bit noisier than like a wire grill. But
it looks like it was designed to be displayed.
Yes.
Yeah, it's
That's
like
typical
to show
Lian
off.
Li.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Everything about Lian Li cases is all about showing off.
Love their styling. Can't hate on it. But it's a nice
Yeah.
looking PSU it's got the flat cables, kind of cool.
Yeah.
So,
Mm-hmm.
be interested
And
to
yeah.
test it out.
Yeah, I'm gonna try to get in touch with them, see if I can get a review unit. But yeah, that's based. I mean, we don't really know much else about them other than just kind of the specs on the website. The one cool thing with the 550 watt unit, especially for people who have an NCase M1, is that the M1 is if you do an SFX-L power supply, it's a bit of a tight fit because the modular connectors are going to be right up against the back of the video card. But on the 550 watt unit, the connectors are like completely flush with the housing. So that saves you a good like 10, 15 millimeters right there. So that should be all the room you need to like easily clear the video card with the flexible cables.
Nice.
So really nice touch. But yeah, we'll just have to kind of wait and see how they perform.
Are they out now, or when do they come out?
Nobody
Now,
knows.
I mean, nobody knows.
okay.
Yep. No, nothing on pricing or availability or anything. So
hopefully
who
it's going to be typical Lian Li pricing, so a little bit more expensive. But it's great to see yet another player in the market, because now we've got Corsair, Silverstone, Lian Li, FSP as the main sellers of SFX power supplies. One more means we should be able to get the prices down a bit. Unfortunately, even though Lian Li is known for aluminium, it doesn't look like it's an aluminium chassis.
Is it steel?
It looks like steel.
Yeah, it's got to be steel. The metal's too thin to be
Which is a shame, but
aluminum.
it's understandable.
Yeah, I mean I think there are aluminum housed power supplies, but I mean the problem is like, I mean you're talking like SFX and 750 watts. I mean you need every bit of space. So I mean having the aluminum housing would eat into your internal space because the metal would have to be thicker. So.
And since we're still talking about power supplies, here's another one. CableMod has launched their cable configurator. Now you can design your own custom power supply cables for modular power supplies. They offer quite a range of colours. It's all in... It's there. They're all custom sleeved. It looks like it's the shrinkless method. James, you posted this news article. What do you think?
So I'm really, really, really looking forward to this because I mentioned in my review of the Corsair SF600 that the cables on it are just they're not terrible, but they're definitely not like really flexible. And actually, this is partly my fault because I wasn't paying attention, but I had tested it or crammed it into my NCase M1, which I have a Noctua C12 on it, and I have the Asus Maximus Impact motherboard, which has the 24 pin on the right side of the board. So like right kind of below the edge of the heatsink. And when I plugged in the 24 pin for the power supply, because it's so stiff, it kind of pressed the cable up against the heatsink, which I didn't really think much of it at the time. But after I took it all apart, I found that the heatsink had almost cut through the insulation on the wires.
Ooh, yikes.
Yeah, so not real happy about that. So I was talking to John Guru, or however you pronounce it, at Corsair, And he mentioned that CableMod would be launching a cable set for the SF600. It's like, oh, okay, cool. So I got in touch with them, and then I found out that because I mean the problem is they make, like, I guess for people who aren't familiar with CableMod, is they make kind of extensions like you can find anywhere, but they make replacement cable sets for modular power supplies, and they're like individually sleeved and all that good stuff. But I mean, of course, like they're typically just like designed as replacements for ATX power supplies, so they're just way too long.
Yeah.
And so when I was talking to them about the SF600, I found out that they're doing they're launching their configurator service soon. And so I've been talking with them about it, and so it launched 2 days ago. And what it does is, like, you go to their website. I think it's, let me double check. I think it's custom.cablemod.com, and I think it'll redirect you to the right place. And so you pick your power supply brand, and then you pick the model, which, as far as that goes, if you want to be safe, you just want to pick the model that you have. But if you know what you're doing, you can kind of fudge it a little bit. Like, for example, they have the Silverstone SX500LG listed, but not the SX600G. But almost all the Silverstone modular units use the same pinout, and I think all the SFF ones definitely do. It's just some of the oddball, I think some of the fanless ATX units don't. So, like, if you know that, then you can safely pick, like, the 500 watt, even if you don't have the 600 watt SFX. But anyway, so you pick your power supply, and then you pick which cables you want. So, like, if you only need, like, the 24 pin and the 8 pin and the PCI Express, and you're not worried about SATA, like if you're running M.2, like, you don't have to get the full set. You can kind of pick and choose which cables you want. And then you can pick what length you want those cables. So when they launched, it was like 300 millimeter minimum, but I mean, that's too much for a lot of SFF builds, especially like the M1, where the power supply is like literally like right up against your different components. So I asked him, and like within a couple hours, he implemented it and changed it. So the minimum's now 150 millimeters,
which is nice.
Very cool.
Yeah,
Very nice.
Really, kudos to them. Very responsive to like kind of feature requests and stuff like that. So yeah, you can pick and choose your length down to a minimum of 150 millimeter. So like you kind of pick and choose it for each of the cables you've selected, and then on the next step, you can pick what colors you want for the sleeving. And it's not just like you want all black or all red or all green. You can pick and choose it for each pair of wires. So you can say if the 24 pin, for instance. So you got, like, it doesn't let you pick each individual wire. It just lets you pick each pair. So you have like 12 pairs, and so you can say like, I want this one black, this one red, this one black, this one black, this one red, and like you can have like a pattern, so you can pick and choose like what pattern you want, which is so cool. And then once you're all done, you check out, and then they're based in Hong Kong, so a couple weeks for shipping if you're like in North America or something. But yeah, prices are, I mean, really reasonable. I mean, it's not cheap, but I mean, it's definitely they're definitely not gouging or anything. It's very reasonable pricing, considering you kind of get custom cables, you pick the length, pick the colors. So anyway, I need to do some measurements and pick a color scheme, but yeah, I'm going to get a set for the SF600, and so hopefully in a couple weeks we'll have a review on the site for it.
Very cool.
Yeah,
this is awesome. This configurator, I'm playing with it right now. It's really cool.
It's really nice. Yeah, it's for SFF builds, because I mean, if any of you, I don't know if either of you have ever tried custom sleeving before.
Many times.
Such a pain.
Yeah,
I
have. It's not
especially
fun.
on the SFX power supplies.
So I mean, if you want, I mean, because some people just like will like calculate the curve radius and have each individual wire at the exact length so it has a natural curve.
Right.
So I mean, if you want that, you're still going to have to do it yourself. But for the rest of us mortals,
you can they have their
awesome.
cable trainers too, and you know, if you just want to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they got a bunch of accessories and stuff like that. So yeah.
Might have to order a set myself.
I might have to get a modular power supply.
I'm thinking of getting a set for an HD Plex. I think getting a
Okay,
nice that'd be
that would
kinda
work.
cool.
Do they make one?
No, I'm just
It'd just be a male-to-male extension,
from
wouldn't it?
Yeah, that's true.
right. Well,
Or
also
female to female, whatever it
the
is.
6 pins and the accessories, or it'd be
I
kind of
mean,
cool.
you may just like email him, like do the
Yeah.
contact form and say like, could you do one for HD Plex?
Yeah, because it's not like it takes any weird connectors or anything.
Yeah,
It's all
it's one of
standard.
it's
So-
one of the more common DC to DC power supplies.
right. So that'd be kind of cool.
Well, if they do launch the HD Plex, you heard it here first. Hopefully. Right, onto our main topic of the evening, or morning, depending on where you are. Passive cooling. I just posted an article this week doing some testing on this, because I was going through Slippery Skip's website and happened to stumble upon his Air build. I think it's how you say that, AYR. And it's a passive cooled small form factor home theatre PC. Now, his system is a Core i3-3225 and a Z77 motherboard and a Silverstone Halogon HEO2 cooler. He's put this inside a absolutely stunning wooden case, as per normal with his builds. But it struck me how accessible is passive cooling. So I got the thermal test system together, threw on a Scythe Ninja 4, and had a go at it. And the results are actually quite interesting. It's definitely usable on a 65 watt CPU, which is not bad. Now, the idea of passive cooling's interested me for quite some time back in the day with the old Pentium 2s with passive cooling on the heatsinks. Graphics cards with no heatsinks whatsoever. And unfortunately loud power supplies, but there wasn't anything you could do about it. But generally, for the past decade or so that I've been building computers, it's always had at least one loud component in it. And I've always subscribed to the theory, just chuck a set of headphones in. However, now I'm working from home for a couple of days a week and also working for a small form factor network. It's come to my attention that my system is really quite loud. I was showing the guys earlier how obscenely loud it was, and yeah. What are you guys' thoughts on passive cooling?
I think in the right circumstance like this, where you're doing a home theater PC, there's definitely a place for passive cooling. Any time you're going to be running a system that has consistent, defined temps, I think you can definitely run passive cooling. I looked at a system from Lenny PC a while back that ran the 6700 Skylake chip i7, and it was passively cooled entirely, no problems whatsoever, unless you really hammered it, went all out in synthetic benchmarks. But if you're doing a home theater PC, I mean, there are tons of passive, well, not tons, but there are quite a few passive cases out there these days. So it's a good option if you're running low load systems.
Yeah, like for me, like I have a tendency, I mean, I like high-end machines, like so I have a 5930K and a 980, so like no way, at least not without building some kind of just absolutely crazy setup, would I be able to do that passively. But what I try to do is to have it like passive at idle, or at least close to it. Like unfortunately, the Asus board I'm running now, you can set the chassis headers to run fanless below a certain CPU temp, but it doesn't actually let you do that for the CPU header, which is kind of annoying. And then actually, I'm running the reference 980s, which I not right now, but I have experimented with modding the BIOS on it to make it semi-passive. Because there's really no reason it can't. I mean, it's got a fairly beefy heatsink on it, even though it's not really exposed to air, I guess, because it's just got the blower fan. But I mean, the 980s at idle aren't drawing much power at all, so like I didn't have any issues with it running it semi-passive. So that's kind of what I aim for, is like passive and idle, and then just kind of fans running the rest of the time at load. Because I mean, I think in theory you could do it completely passive 980, like X99, but you would just had to have like massive heat sinks.
Yeah. Your room would be one giant heat sink.
Yeah.
That would be interesting to see.
Oh, I do want to bring up though. I see this this idea a lot that like if you're running passive, it will run hotter and it will make your room hotter. Which
Lord.
It will run the components hotter, but it won't make your room hotter because it's still the same amount of energy being consumed by the system and thus transferred to the environment. So like, if anything, yeah, I mean, if you had like a bunch of Delta fans in there, like it shouldn't heat up your room any more than if you ran it passively. Because if the system's drawing 65 watts, then it's drawing 65 watts regardless of whether like it's running at like 30 degrees at load or like 70 degrees at load. So like the amount of energy transferred to the room is the same. So just I wanted to get that out.
I'm glad you brought that up because that's one of the most common misconceptions.
Also, remember he got into a titty about the wood getting too hot.
Yes.
Which was pretty funny.
Yeah. I emailed Slippery Skip before posting this article just for permissions to use his pictures because that's what we do. And apparently the most criticism he had for his build was that the wood was going to catch fire. Now, just to clear that one up for everyone listening, wood smoke point is about 400 degrees Celsius. If your CPU is running at 400 degrees Celsius, can you like take it to some scientific institute to see what solder you've got? Because damn.
That would be impressive.
In fact, the
an impressive overclock there.
Yeah, the PVC or plastic cable, the plastic you've got on your wires, that stuff melts at about 150 degrees. So that stuff's going to drip off your cables and short circuit before the wood will actually catch fire.
Yeah, well, that's people on the internet.
Yes. But back to the topic at hand. I'm actually going to continue chasing this idea, seeing how much I can actually do with passive cooling, try and get my 8350 passive cooled. Might need a bit of an underclock. As well as my graphics card, which is a jet engine. The one thing to take in, what's the word for it? The one thing to worry about when you're doing passive cooling is the heat sinks on your motherboard. So not the CPU cooler or the graphics card, you've just chucked massive heat sinks on that. You just the little itty bitty chipset heatsink or the little VRM heatsink. They're designed with active cooling in mind, and they will get very hot. In fact, I think I may have killed the thermal test system with the passive cooling testing, just because of the heat. At one point, the VRM heatsink actually burnt me.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
That's aggressive.
It is a bit. SpeedFan wasn't recording that high a temperature on it, but it was pretty hot.
Wow.
But there are larger, well, for the chipset anyway, there's definitely larger coolers available. Not so much with VRMs because each motherboard is different. The different mounting patterns, the different heights of VRM components. It's basically a case of just be careful, think about what you're doing, measure all the temperatures that you can, and see what you can do, I suppose.
I'm really excited for James's X99 dual 980 Ti passively cooled system that he just said he was going to build. That he's locked into building.
Yeah. I wonder, well, you could do it, but man, trying to do it in something that's even remotely SFF would be a super challenge.
Do it in a car trunk. There you go. You have enough space there. Or your closet, something like that.
Hey, I wonder if you say instead of passive, if you say like fanless, and then you put a Sandia cooler on it, technically it's fanless, right?
Are we ever going to see that cooler?
No. It was too good. They were like, can't compete with this. Let's bury this tech.
Someone must have bought up all of them. Maybe they're running all the Google servers now.
Acquire and bury.
Though actually, I had seen I think Gigabyte, I think, had experimented with it, with having a water cooling system without a pump. And what it is like I think they just had the system arranged such that the temperature differential between like the inlet and the outlet would actually kind of cycle the water. So, I mean, of course, they still had fans on it, but I'm wondering if maybe if you just ran it fanless, if that would give you enough surface area that you wouldn't need like a massive heat sink.
How drastically would they have to cool it? What are they using? Some sort of refrigerant pad, like a?
No, it's just a normal coolant. It's just I think they had it. I don't know. There's
How do
probably
they
an
cool it
article
that
about
quickly? Is my question.
Well, I mean, it's like a normal water cooling loop. Basically, what they did is that instead of like a pump moving the water, they just used kind of the heat difference between like the inlet and outlet to kind of like cycle the water, because the hotter water would be a little less dense, and so that would kind of move it around.
I just wouldn't have thought that would have moved it quickly enough, but that's
yeah,
very
I'm not
interesting.
sure, but I mean, I've like the 5930K. I've used the Noctua L9X65, which is a pretty small heatsink, and it's able to manage it. So I'm wondering, like, if you had like a 360 rad like that, I would think that's enough surface area that fanless you could. I mean, it's not going to be great temps by any means, but I think it would be able to keep it below like throttling, which
Right.
is really all that matters.
No fan coolers.
Yeah.
People rate them pretty well.
Well, here's the thing. That's pretty much exactly the same. It's just larger heat pipes, isn't it? Because the copper heat pipes in your normal heatsink is just a pipe with a fluid in it,
Yeah.
Basically.
which is what do they usually use?
I'm not sure. I don't think I've ever seen anything that said what fluid it is. They always just say it's a low pressure. It's a fluid under low pressure, which could be water for all that matters.
Wikipedia is saying
Yeah.
water,
Yeah.
which is interesting. So Gigabyte just took that to the next level, which is interesting because that would imply that one could make their own heat pipes with some copper pipe and a bender. Because I know
I watched somebody
well-
try to do that on YouTube. Didn't work out so well.
Yeah, because the heat pipes, they have a wicking structure on the
that's a
inside.
good point.
That's how it's able to kind of pull the condensed liquid back to the block. Without that, it's just going to evaporate, and then it'll go to the highest point, and then it won't come back. So it'll overheat.
But yeah, I know Straycom does sell heat pipes individually. Not individually,
Yes.
they sell packs, so you could do your own kind of
Yeah, they do.
design. It'd be nice if you could actually find them, like some manufacturer that'll do a certain length and just bend it yourself. But I cannot find them anywhere.
They do make them. It's more of an industrial thing. I was looking because the people who make the Synjets, which if you remember that project, the little blower things, I think it was Avid Alloy or something like that. And they do a bunch of, I mean, basically they're a thermal management company. And then let me see if I can find it. And so I think I remember them. They had like heat pipes and stuff.
Okay.
Though I mean, the problem with that is that it's industrial stuff, so it's more like how many like pallets do you want to buy?
I may have just answered my own question. Found some.
There you go.
Not cheap, but found some.
Let's get some blocks going.
$12. Yeah.
That's not bad.
Yeah, $12 per heat pipe. But then all you
Yeah.
need is just some aluminium or copper. Cut some slots in
Yeah.
it. So I think back in the day, Zellman may have done a case where it was like an ATX tower. The entire side was a heatsink structure.
Yeah, I think I know which one you're talking about.
Yeah, Streetcom and Wesson, there's a couple cases like that, but they're really designed for 65 watt CPUs.
I don't think this one was. I think TNN
No. Yeah.
300.
That is a beast.
And
That is
they did an
interesting.
ALQ without heat pipes, but they did one with water, which is the ALQ 1000. which the entire side panel was a big passive heatsink with a few tubes going through it for your water cooling. I mean, that kind of thing could be applied to passive cooling as well. You've got the noise of the pump, but if you've only got that one motor in your system, it's going to be significantly quieter than having a fan on your CPU, 2 fans on your GPU, and so forth.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it'd be interesting, like if Straycom came out with a case that instead of the heatsink being on the sides, it's the entire top panel. It just like got a copper slug down to the CPU.
That would be interesting. Yes. There's a case that's kind of like that.
I remember seeing one somewhere, but
not really exactly.
They do also do like Straycom does a hell of a lot of accessories that you could use to do your own system if you're clever enough or had the tools. They've got a CPU heatsink riser thing, I think. Accessories.
Yeah.
The HT4 riser.
That, like, U-shaped piece.
Yeah. So you could use that to build up to a big industrial heatsink.
Absolutely.
And just mill it down or something.
Yeah, I saw that. I was very, very intrigued by that. You know, because you could do a lot with that. You know, it's how hard would it be to get a block to connect to your case from that? Not at all. Depending on how the dimensions.
Because I'm sure you could find like a big used aluminium heatsink off eBay from some old industrial equipment and just cut it down to size and use that as an entire panel.
Right. I was also thinking you could do, if you had a tight case, if you put that on your GPU, and it wouldn't cool the RAM or anything like that, but
a lower power graphics card is not a big deal.
Yeah, you could hit it right to the side of your case depending on the dimensions. That would be interesting.
Actually finding some interesting heatsinks on eBay.
Yeah.
Like this one. I actually saved this link to this picture.
Oh, man.
That one is 135 by 170 by 270.
Very interesting.
Wow.
So one dimension it's the same width as an ITX board, the other dimension it's 10 centimeters longer. But that's enough for a power supply to sit underneath it. And that was $105 plus about $40 shipping.
I wonder if you could like machine it so that there's maybe like a copper slug where the CPU would sit, and then like the rest of it would have like, you can machine it so that it would fit your board exactly, so that way you could have pads for the VRMs and the chipset and stuff. So it'd be like a whole board water block except without the water.
If you had the tools awesome. If you had the tools in a CNC mill at home, it's completely feasible. Or even a hand mill at home in some time.
That'd be very, very cool.
Things I would do if I had the money and the time. I won't have a hard enough time trying to passive cool this system anyway. It's definitely going to be a bigger case.
Oh yeah.
But I can like, just by turning off 4 cores, I can knock it down to a 70-watt CPU, so it's not a big deal.
Yes, that works.
Yeah, it's the one advantage of the FX8350 is just like the flexibility with wattage. I can knock it down to a dual core, and it's like a 30-watt CPU at 4 gigahertz. Because I'm effectively turning off an entire quarter of the CPU.
Yeah.
And it won't be quite, it'll be like closer to 40 watts because you've still got the schedulers and stuff like that in there, but still. And now for our final section, the favourite forum thread of the Fortnight. This week we've selected the thread that I actually started, just because of the podcast and trying to pronounce everyone's name. The origin of your nickname thread. Now, I posted this up on, about 9th of March with my own one, which is Confusis, which originally started off as Confused Psychosis. I'm not the Chinese philosopher, just so people know. And quite a few other people have posted in this thread. I know James hasn't yet. Come on, sort it out.
I keep forgetting.
Well, now's an opportune time. But we've also, we've got users who have posted, like, Twinks, which is not how I thought that was pronounced. Funks, which I assume that's how that's pronounced. Funks, hopefully. Lots of initials and letters. I'm not going to try and pronounce our guest's name because I don't speak German. There's quite a few different names in here. Jay, where did your name come from?
Tech everything. Well, it's a long story. No, it's not long. It's my YouTube channel name. It's just Tech TECH was not available, so I needed a URL. Tech everything came to mind. Nothing really exciting about that. My usual handle is actually JMadd, which is just the letter J, MADD. That has a kind of an interesting story, I guess. When I was younger, I played football, and my last name is Mattison with T's, but everyone in America pronounces it with D's because they're lazy, and so I became JMadd when I was playing football as my nickname. So that's like my Xbox Live name and what I usually use when I'm playing games or anything like that. So that's probably more of my actual nickname or would-be forum name otherwise.
And James, what about yours?
So, I don't know if you've ever it came with the Windows 8 beta, I think. But there's this game that was actually from Microsoft Studios. I think they had some interns come up with it or something. But it's a Wordament, which is like a
great game.
Yeah, it's a grid game with a bunch of letters, and you had to like find the words. And so it's timed, and so however many words you can find, like how many and like how long they are, gives you more points and stuff. And it's what's interesting is that you're playing like a global scoreboard against everybody else playing. So I used to play it quite a bit, and actually I would just play as a guest because I didn't really care. I just kind of wanted to see what my score was. But there was a couple times when I got like the top 10, I think, out of like 800 people. So like I was getting kind of proud of that. So I was like, oh, I need a username. But man, it's Microsoft, so it's tied into like Xbox Live, and like everything is taken on Xbox Live, like every username. So I was like, I didn't want to have like a bunch of like letters and numbers like most people do. I wanted something that's just like a single word and it's just straightforward. So I was like looking and looking and looking, and I wanted something kind of like language, grammar related, something like that. And then I came across this interesting one, like Aibohphobia, which it's the irrational fear of palindromes, which, I mean, it's kind of an inside joke. Somebody made it up, but what a palindrome is, for people who don't know, is it's a word that's the same whether it's spelled forward or backward. So if you spell Aibohphobia, you'll figure it out. So that's actually what sucks though is that I wasn't thinking, and I just put in some random birthday because I usually do that on accounts I don't care about. For when I signed up for the Xbox Live account, and I accidentally picked a birthday that was like less than 13 years. So I couldn't actually use it because you had to have permission from a parent in order to use it use it as an Xbox Live account. So, oops.
You couldn't change it?
Yeah, it's like I quit caring at that point. But I ended up, when I started signing up for forums and stuff, I just used that, and here we are. And then kind of related to that, I don't know if everybody knows this here, but on Reddit, of course, same thing, everything's taken, including Aibohphobia. So I have an account. I actually created this before, and I just kind of reused it once I started doing like SFF stuff. For Suloco is my Reddit handle, and it's just because at the time I had an Oculus DK1, and I needed something to post stuff about it. So if you spell out Suloco, you'll figure that out too. So yeah, that's basically mine. They're both kind of like language related.
I saw Silico and I thought, oh, it's just like some oil company. Evidence of such in the comments thread below.
Sunoco. That's the good one here in America.
Okay. How does Joshua usually end these things?
He says something really tells us a cool joke, I guess. I don't remember.
Yeah, usually. Yeah, I don't remember actually. I don't usually listen to them anymore because I've already listened to it during the recording. Yeah.
I suppose I'll just roll
So
my own and yeah, and we're done.
I don't think it could be quite that abrupt.